And now we're going to go into our verse for the day. Let's see what I got here. Here we go. 2 Thessalonians 2:1. Now we beseech you, brethren, by the coming of our Lord Jesus Christ and by our gathering together unto him, that you be not soon shaken in mind, or be troubled, neither by spirit, nor by word, nor by letter, as from us, as the day of Christ is at hand. Let no man deceive you by any means, for that day shall not come, except there come a falling away first, and that man of sin be revealed, the son of perdition, who opposes and exalteth himself above all that is called God or that is worshipped, so that he as God sitteth in the temple of God, showing himself that he is God. And the point here that I wanted to point out is this falling away that is to precede the man of sin. That's what we are experiencing, and that what that falling away is a falling away of truth. You had the truth and you fell away from it. I mean, if you are a Christian and you listen to this Donald Trump rhetoric about, I'm a Christian, I need all you Christians to vote only once. You only got to do it one more time. It's so hyperbolic, ridiculous, and stupid and manipulative. If people don't hear that and think that he's not mocking you and making you look stupid, I mean, I'm sure you can explain it to me in 50 different ways, and it's probably like some Q call sign or something, but it's the most absurd, hyperbolic thing. He could easily kowtow to the Christians and pander to them without saying anything that is that disingenuous. And it offends me because I am marginally intelligent. So it's offensive because I'm not that big of a retard. I am not that big of a retard. That's all. So the falling away is this falling away from truth. And this isn't just about politics. This is about doctrine. This is about what is orthodoxly held as truth. This is Trinitarianism and everything that is absolutely undeniably true. And there's just been a complete compromise, falling away, compartmentalization of it. It's been compartmentalized. It's been rationalized, right? When you stuff it in that box and you compartmentalize your Christianity, you have all these rations and reasons. And when you observe terrible things and you're talking to a Christian brother about it, and then they admonish you for it, and then they give all of these emotional reasons for why you are wrong when you are clearly observing just horrible things. And if you point it out, you're like some kind of terrible person. And, and why don't you like the log cabin Republicans and all that stuff? But I digress. Okay. So that's the verse for the day. Now we're going to jump into one more article. This comes from the Federal Reserve Bank of Kansas City. Not bullish. U.S. cattle herds hung up on higher interest expenses. Cattle inventories declined to historically low levels at the start of 24. This was largely in part to the great sell-off last year when due to drought and other things, sale barn lines last year were miles and miles and miles long. And then what they do is these big beef people, they buy up at the sale barn and then they sell it overseas. So it's not like sale barn sales are going into our inventory and into our supply chain. They actually get sold for a premium overseas, right? And what that'll do is that continues to diminish. So the historically low levels at the beginning of 2024 were from the sell-off in 2023. When your herd is smaller, they have less calves, and this becomes a downward spiral. Cattle producers may face challenges maintaining or restocking herds. And then in turn, as that number of cows dropped, trying to buy calves and 8 and 9-month-olds, man, that price doubled, right? So then that cost becomes prohibitive, and it becomes a vicious cycle. Although feed costs have decreased slightly, higher costs for financing and other operating expenses could continue to put pressure on cattle production and profitability. Sharp increases in interest rates have led to higher interest expenses in the agricultural sector, with interest rates on farm loans nearly tripling from the beginning of 22 to the end of 23. Wow. This is why it is so important to do your best to get out of debt and not leverage and certainly not be over leveraged, because when financing prices triple and you're heavily leveraged, your cost of doing business triples. In fact, in 2023, interest expenses represented the fastest growing source of total farm production expense. While higher interest expenses have particularly affected newly purchased or refinanced assets such as farmland, interest expenses have also increased dramatically from the producers along the beef supply chain. Interest expenses for cattle producers have been intensified by higher interest rates, higher prices for cattle to restock herds, and increases in other production expenses. Together, higher prices and borrowing costs could squeeze profit margins for cattle producers and contribute to a prolonged period of lower cattle supply. Although increases in cattle prices largely offset higher interest rate expenses in 22 and 23, profit margins have tightened recently. The chart 1 shows that over most of the last decade, the annual range of price producers receive for cattle was above average cost of production. In other words, cattle producers have opportunities for positive profit margins nearly every year. However, so far in 24, the range of prices has stayed below the total cost of production. Although interest expenses make up a small share of the total production cost, growth in interest expenses when margins are tight can be the difference between positive and negative profit margins. For stockholders and feedlots, profit margins have turned negative in the early months of 24. While margins may not yet be negative for cow-calf producers, higher prices and borrowing rates have also made purchasing new stock more difficult. Futures markets suggest that prices could increase further this year, but so far, higher interest rate expenses have challenged profitability for the average cow-calf operation. One reason cattle prices have remained strong is low inventories. Total inventories for cattle and calves have declined since 2019 amid supply chain disruptions related to the global pandemic and widespread severe drought. In January of 24, cattle inventories reached their lowest levels in more than 70 years. And recent developments suggest U.S. cattle herd numbers could decline even further. The number of cattle sold to feedlots or cattle on feed rebounded, which means more cattle continue to be sold off farms and into the beef supply chain. Also, inventories for beef cows and heifers continue to decline, signaling that market and financial conditions have been more conducive to selling heifers and cows than retaining them. And in March of 24, U.S. cattle production suffered additional losses due to wildfires in Texas and Oklahoma, where it is estimated that thousands of cattle have perished alongside other tremendous damages. Lower feed costs have historically helped offset declining inventories. Feed makes up a large majority of total production expenses for cattle, especially feeder cattle, and lower feed costs have been a major incentive for producers to rebuild herds in past years. Chart 2 demonstrates that profits, or the ratio of calf selling price to the cost of feed, increased in 23 as feed costs moderated. According to Cali, in 21, cattle inventories typically increase in the year after producer profitability. That is, the price to feed cost ratio increases and decreases the year after profitability declines. Yeah, and that's just a natural common sense cycle. However, the blue bars in chart 2 show that despite uh, stable profitability in 19 to 22, cattle inventories continue to decline, likely due largely to the pandemic and drought, which conveniently happened simultaneously. Moreover, despite an increase in profitability in 23, inventories were still lower at year end. Higher interest rates accounted for some of the increase in costs of purchasing additional animals and could prevent inventories from rebuilding momentum. So I will link this article down below so you can look at these charts and you'll see kind of the metrics, and you'll be able to look at these trend lines and see where it's going. It is incredibly disturbing. We do know that there are going to continue to be supply issues and food issues. And then in addition to this pressure, there's all this international pressure of cows' farts are bad and eat the bugs. And that's why I'm wearing my you will own nothing, eat the bugs and be happy, which you can find at TheTexasBoys.com. But I'll pin this article down below. And in light of this information, I do want to reiterate the fact that we do still have 3/4 of a beef for sale. We're going to be we're continuing to expand our herd. Unfortunately, I'm not getting any of these. I am getting a good deal on some Black Angus, but it's not due to any of this indirect pressure that's driving prices down or anything like that. And this is usually how it works. And when, you know, inventory is small, it drives up the price to, and then we're having a great hay year as well. So we're going to be stocked with hay. And then we're also, we're cutting all of our own hay and it's unsprayed. And not only that, we have access to multiple pastures that are not sprayed. We are probably going to be selling hay as well. So it could potentially be a really good year for us. We appreciate all y'all locals that support us, and we want to continue to grow and develop our herd and continue to expand our operation. I just wanted to speak to another comment we had, and I realize there's lots of weird comments, but I think it was an older person commented that they wouldn't support us as a meat company because uh, we don't accept food stamps and all this stuff. And we're just a family with cows. And, you know, um, I'm certainly not going to get into some kind of food stamp program. I have no desire to be involved with the government whatsoever. Um, I pay my taxes. I pay, we pay a lot of taxes. We pay way more taxes than anybody should, just like the rest of us. I'm not saying that I pay more taxes than anybody else, but that is the extent that I want to be involved with the federal government or any of their subsidies or any of their handouts. I just have no interest. It's bad enough that I have to let them steal from me. And so that's the extent that I want to be involved with them. And that's why I have a CPA. So yeah. And so I didn't quite understand the comment, but I did want to respond to it. And I'm not going to take up any more time on that. And just to close out, I'm going to do a quick health check. So Faith and I we teamed up with the Steak and Butter Gang, and we are taking their 30-day challenge. So we started doing some carnivore priming, and this has been a real game changer for me. I've continued to feel better and do better, and my shoulder's getting better. But what I learned through this priming process is that even though I was never hungry in the past year, I was not eating enough. And there would be some times where I would feel incredibly sluggish. And it was exclusively due to the fact that I just was not eating enough. And so we started implementing a free app called Carb Manager. And I'm just tracking my protein and fat intake. And as soon as I started doing that, my sleep immediately improved and my energy levels are great, like off the charts, which is what happened within the first 90 days of carnivore. I had these incredible energy levels, and I thought it was so weird that my energy dropped back off and my sleep which has still been incredible compared to years past, has just it worsened slightly. But now, just by increasing my protein and fat intake and tracking it so I know when I hit what I'm looking for, my energy levels are fantastic, sleep's better. So, want to encourage y'all, if you're interested or considering this whole carnivore thing, look into Carb Manager, um, and track what you're eating. And if you track that, you're going to notice trends and tendencies and all these different things. And it's going to help you help yourself, and you're going to feel better. The other thing I'm able to do is now I'm starting to aggressively train with the weight sled. If you want to check out our shorts, I'm doing more exercises. We have a little 15-foot above ground pool. And so I'm swimming laps with that to rehab the shoulder, because that's really kind of the best exercise for this, my missing labrum and all these other things. And it is really, the most fascinating one of the most fascinating things that I've experienced with the carnivore diet is, now that I'm training hard, within 30 minutes of training, a very heavy, like legs, with it, with whether it's pulling the cart, and I'm pulling the cart, weighted cart, forwards and backwards. And when I get done within 30 minutes, my quads and my hams and my lower back are like, wow, like I really did something. I really worked out. It's very sore. Well, what is incredible is I'll go to bed, and when I wake up, I am totally not sore at all. No sign of being sore. So somehow within that 8-hour sleeping cycle, whatever lactic and all these other things are completely regenerated just in 8 hours. And it is the most superhuman thing I've ever experienced. And I wish, and you can't, whatever. I mean, you can't go backwards, and the shoulder thing is what it is. I don't even know what it would be like if I could fully train with this type of recovery cycle. I don't even know what would happen. So now I'm swimming laps. I put on a snorkel and a mask, and I swim laps in a pool. So I'll do like 10 or 20 laps or whatever. And I'm doing some water weight with this shoulder. And it's crazy sore right now because I just worked out. But my range of motion, if I can get my range of motion back to where I can really train heavy, it'll be neat to see what happens. And if not, God's good. I'm not going to complain. I'm very thankful for what I got back, and the fact that I can function and work and play with my children and enjoy my family and take trips and go on vacation and enjoy life a little bit without being in chronic debilitating pain. So I'm not going to complain about that. But the recovery rate is incredible. And I've heard people talk about it and speculate on it. And until I experience, I'm like, that's a bunch of hooey. Until I experience, it is incredibly legit. And as you continue to feel better, you're going to want to work out too, which is kind of hilarious. And then, yeah, it's pretty incredible. It is pretty incredible. Well, that's all I got for y'all today. I hope you're having an awesome day. And remember, y'all, stay fearless, my friends.